Chris and Chris Talk Movies.
Okay, hey, welcome to the podcast. I'm Chris Ferry, and this is my co-host.
I'm Chris Huddleston.
And we are pretty excited to be joining you today to talk about a movie that was a complete surprise to me. I can't believe I went through my entire life not knowing about this movie. But what we're going to be talking about today is The Wraith.
An evil force took his life. An unearthly power has brought him back. He is a phantom, a wraith, a cosmic spirit given another chance.
Are you new in town?
Yeah. Who's the kid?
I turned my back, and the next second he was there. Like magic, almost.
You ever seen one of those before? Nah, let's just add it to our collection.
There's a kid out there using his car to kill people. Not that it's such a big deal, since it seems to be your gang he's got it in for.
Hold on! Grab the shotgun, Mama Luca.
A wraith, man! A ghost! An evil spirit, and it ain't cool!
What are you doing? Packard, stop
Get
it!
in the car!
What are you doing, man? You
Get out of my face, burger boy! You wind up dead like your brother!
Hey! Who is that guy?
I don't know. But whoever he was, he's weird and ticked off.
I seen his eyes, Loomis!
Who are you?
Who are you?
The Wraith. If you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to fear.
Chris, do you have a synopsis prepared to share?
I do. I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to just read from the IMDb, their summation. It's short, but it's pretty great. So here's how it goes. Packard Walsh. We got to talk about that name, but Packard Walsh and his motorized gang control and terrorize an Arizona desert town where they force drivers to drag race so they can win their vehicles. After Walsh stabs the decent teenager, Jamie Hawkins, to death for being intimate with a girl whom Walsh wants for himself, the mysterious Jake Casey arrives, an extremely cool motorbiker with an invincible car. Jake befriends Jamie's girlfriend, Carrie Johnson, takes Jamie's sweet brother, Billy, under his wing, and manages what Sheriff Loomis cannot, the methodical and otherworldly elimination of Packard's criminal gang. I think that's a pretty good summary of the movie.
It's an excellently written summary of the movie. It misses a lot of the glory that is watching the film, but it does hit all of the bases. One of the first things that blew me away on this one was the cast, because we got Charlie Sheen, we've got Randy Quaid, and we've got Clint Howard. All three people that, it's fun to see in their younger selves. There's also some other names in here that I think you'd recognize. Whether or not you know the names, it's full of faces that look familiar.
Exactly. You also have Sherilyn Fenn. Now, I don't know. Are you a Twin Peaks fan at all?
I never got all that into, I'm ashamed to say, never got all that into Twin Peaks.
I wanted to like it, when it originally came out, it was such a hot thing. And I never really got into it, but the third season, which David Lynch just did a couple of years ago, you really don't have to watch the first two seasons at all. That's a must watch. You have to watch that. It's just insane. I mean, it's we can talk about that later, but the third season of Twin Peaks is just amazing. But anyway, so Sherilyn Fenn was famous from that. She has a lot of acting credits. I don't know that a film career ever really materialized for her too much. But, she's another, she was kind of on the brink of stardom at the time. And Charlie Sheen, I saw an interview with him a couple of weeks ago around the time that I watched this movie. This was the same year that he did Platoon. And Oliver Stone was really upset with him for doing this movie.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So, he does this. I don't know if did he win an Oscar for Platoon? I know it was an Oscar, nominated, but it's like,
I don't
you go from
remember.
this to, I think Platoon was like a few months after this when it came out.
I thought you were going to say, did he win an Oscar for this?
No, he should have.
Decidedly not. But that's fascinating, the proximity of this to that movie, because there's just it's a terrible movie, but it's also a great movie. And I think it's so rare to find one that is both simultaneously, that has so many flaws and imperfections that you think, oh, this is awful, but you can't stop watching it, and there's lots and lots to love in it too.
Oh, for sure. This is the definition of so bad it's good. And this is one of these movies, and I think this is where 80s movies are so different from movies today. The cast and crew had to know that this was a dumb movie, but it seems like this was made earnestly.
Yeah,
in that I today people will purposely try to make a bad movie,
right,
which doesn't work. You can't manufacture a cult film, basically.
Right.
And I think, like with the styles and everything. So, you see Charlie Sheen, he pulls up on a motorcycle, and when he first meets Sherilyn Fenn, he's wearing a sleeveless jean jacket with no shirt underneath.
Sure.
And then the bully, the villain who you meet later, he also is wearing a jacket with no shirt underneath. And, if somebody made a movie and they did that today, they would be, it would be ironic, or they're trying to make that funny or whatever. I think they probably just thought, oh, that looks cool to have a jacket with no, and we would have been a little bit younger than the characters in this movie at the time that this came out.
Right, what are they, seniors in high school?
That's
probably?
The thing that I never could quite figure out. Were they supposed to be in high school? Were they supposed to be in college? I wasn't sure.
It's summer. It's Arizona, but it's summertime, and we pick up the ingenue from her job and stuff. So it's not clear if it's a summer job or maybe they're just out of. It's clearly pitched at the high school crowd.
Yeah, definitely. But, we were around at this time. Like I say, we weren't high school or college age. But was that a thing? Like, did guys wear jackets with no shirt underneath? I mean,
you could apply that. You could apply that metric, that question to all kinds of, was drag racing for pink slips still a thing in 1986? I mean, it's not 1952. It's,
Yeah. Well, and, so much of the 80s, as filmmakers are making movies today, and they grew up in the 80s, so they're doing all these homages to the 80s. You had these directors back then that they were probably kids in the 50s, right? So this was what they were nostalgic about. But one thing that was really funny, so the movie opens with this Packard again. Why is your villain named Packard? That's not an intimidating name or anything.
It's a perfect, but let me pause right there, because it's a perfect mashup of all the different styles that's indicative of the whole movie. He looks like in my memory of the movies from the 80s that I'm the most fond of, the 80s villain is the kind of rich white kid with the popped collar and the feathered hair. And he outskis you, or he's got the flashier car, or he's got the awesome mansion his parents live in,
right?
Or he throws the best parties and dates the best girl, right? And so Packard fits right into that trope of
true.
Look who just walked in, Packard. Is that kind of 80s guy. And look, frankly, he's the head of this kind of vicious gang, and we see in the flashback that he and his gang murder somebody, which seems, you're like, what is this?
Yeah. And I loved with the drag race at the beginning. So they just go up to this couple, basically. So it's, this Packard and his gang, as you mentioned, and they just go around and drag race people, I guess. And he goes up to this couple, and it's like forces the guy to race, right? And they make
by threatening his girl, by threatening the girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And they make some kind of a comment. I don't know if it's before or after the race, but it's like, it's the rules or it's the law or whatever that, you're racing for pinks. And it's like, I remember watching it and thinking, so like that holds up in court or something. It's like, well, we raced for pinks. So
yeah, when you watch the whole movie,
yeah,
pardon the spoilers, these are people that are willing to murder.
Yeah.
Why not just steal his car?
Yeah,
why race him for it? A race in which Packard cheats. I don't understand. Like, what's the whole, for whom is this charade?
Yeah.
You're just stealing a guy's car.
Yeah, exactly. And and then you have, so when Charlie Sheen, when the car appears,
right, it's
just sort of these orbs come out of the sky, and then they form the car or whatever. Right. And then, he, and we find out later on that he is one of the people that they murdered earlier, and he's reincarnated for whatever reason. There's never any explanation as to where that comes from. Why it comes from outer space or
space ghost? Why is he a space wraith?
Yeah.
Why doesn't he look like the? And when you say one of the murdered, we only see evidence that he's killed one person, although he's constantly threatening it. Like this guy doesn't fit into society. His behavior is it's completely outside of the bounds of what the cop or any of the other town officials would tolerate. Like
exactly.
He's utterly menacing in ways that I find completely implausible with real life. But we do only have evidence that he killed the one person, and somehow this one person has come back from space as a kind of a cosmonaut in a future car. So you've got the 80s cool car, you got the 80s sort of a motorcycle outfit that he's wearing. But then he's kind of cruising around town on the back of a motorbike as Charlie Sheen. Spoiler alert, sorry everybody. It's pretty clear from the get-go because he's all cut up in consistent ways, and you'd have to be severely not paying attention to put it together.
And that was something that I wondered about. Is it, it's obviously a mystery to the characters. The characters don't find out, they find out as they go along, and some of the characters don't even discover until the very end who he is. As the viewer, is it supposed to be a mystery? I mean, like you said, it's obvious from the beginning, but are you supposed to, is it supposed to take you a while to piece it together?
I think so. I think there's supposed to be like these telltale clues. Like he goes to the beach and meets
scars on his back.
So crazy scars.
Yeah.
And like one on his neck. And it's like so severe that you'd comment on it. I mean, you would try and if you were a nice person, you would do it in a polite way, but you'd be like, are you okay? He looked like he'd been through a wood chipper.
Yeah, exactly. And why is he a totally different person, but he has these scars?
I don't know.
And
then there's this sort of other thing that's like as people die. So he uses this race trope to kind of get the gang back. And one at a time, we work our way up to the boss fight. And he basically, what he does is he uses his supercar to get out in front of him. And then he pulls, into a perpendicular position, and they crash into his car, and the whole thing goes up in flames. And then the car just sort of reforms out of light or whatever. When they pull the body from the wreckage, instead of being all burned and mutilated, it looks perfectly normal, except like it's been sucked of all its life essence, right? And the eyes are all empty, and it freaks everybody out. But that raises so many questions. It's like, well, okay, so the corpse still didn't burn. Like, I don't understand what are the mechanics of this space wraith? Like, that I took from it that he's healing his scars by absorbing the life force of his victims, vengeance victims. But
I hadn't really thought of that, but that's a good.
It's a guess because I was left being like, what? Why is this?
Well, and also after each, after he kills each of them, he has a brace appears,
right,
and disappears or whatever. And I never really, because it wasn't like it didn't seem like it was forming his outfit or whatever. Did you think? I mean,
no,
I didn't know what that was supposed to be.
It was like crazy, like lightweight pipe that he had wrapped around his legs and looked a little bit like rickets braces on his legs, and like one of those fancy slingshots that you used to, you like an arm brace slingshot that had that little tube that wrapped around your forearm.
Exactly.
And they made a big point of like pushing it real close on this thing that sort of then turned white and faded away or something. It was like, yeah, we know it's the same guy. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, this was also the space Wraith. You're like, yeah. Who else would it have been?
Yeah.
I didn't. That little piece doesn't fade away with the rest of him immediately. I don't know. It was very strange.
Yeah, I didn't. And essentially, this is kind of set up like a slasher movie in a way. But what it lacks that, say, like the Friday the 13th movies or something like that have, there's no creativity in the kills. They do the same thing every time. He just drives through their car and it blows up,
Right. And it's down to the dialogue of the gang. It's a big gang. It's like 8 people. And it's like, oh, it's my turn. I'm going to get this guy now. Right. And then they sort of shoulder to the front and hop in the car and blam, and they're gone. Right.
None of them, they don't learn anything. They all do it the same way.
No, it's like, you're not going to beat the Space Wraith guys. There's a lot going on because it had elements of a slasher movie. And then he has these two kind of tweakers that are the kind of C-3PO and R2-D2 of the movie. They're these kind of clowns.
They are Gutter Boy and Skank.
Skank.
And they drink.
One of them does. Do they both?
Yeah. I think it's just the one. I can't remember. I think that's Gutter Boy, who drinks, what is it, antifreeze or brake fluid or something like that. And that's like how he gets high.
It seems to change. Like, he doesn't huff. It doesn't seem like he's huffing a single thing. It's like they work in the junkyard, and he seems to drink just about anything that's supposed to go in a car.
Mm-hmm.
And it messes him up pretty good.
And they work in this weird airplane like junkyard where they're taking parts off of planes, and it's
there's so much to get to. While we're talking about locales, so the gang has got like this chop shop base that's huge. It's like a huge warehouse garage full of like, in beautiful 80s style, full of like neon and glam lighting, and it's just full of these fancy cars that they've essentially stolen. I raced for, but essentially stolen. There's a scene where the Wraith shows up with a sort of space gun and like blows the place up.
Mm-hmm.
But it made me wonder, like, A, why doesn't he just shoot them all? Like, why race them to death? And B, why show up to the place and effectively trash the place without hurting any of the people that you're out? It just seemed like a complete non sequitur. Did that make any sense to you?
No, it didn't. And I loved I'm glad you brought up this garage, because the outside, it's like this dilapidated barn.
Right.
But inside, like you said, it's super, high tech and fancy. And we never see anybody's homes basically in this. So we don't like Packard. He seems to live in the garage, it seems like, because he has there's a scene where he has like a bed in there and he's with a girl in there. But you don't know if, like you were saying, he seems like the stereotypical 80s rich douchebag guy, but we don't know if, we don't see anybody's parents or anything like that. So we don't know if he is this rich guy. Are they funding their operation by stealing people's cars, that they win in these drag races and then they sell them or something? Like, how do they have this money for this extravagant garage?
It is never addressed, although my hunch would be that the money is more related to the name Packard than it is to the
true. Yeah.
Because they don't seem to have a straight head on their shoulders.
True. And why does the gang hang out with him, and why does he hang out with he seems to have, he's like this rich guy and they're just kind of these,
losers.
They're just losers. And I guess maybe you could say because he's such a bad guy, nobody else would be friends with him, basically. And he just bullies them and everything. But it's like, why does he hang out with them?
Yeah. And the Clint Howard character is one of the most interesting characters.
He steals the movie, I think.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's my favorite character.
It's great.
He's Rughead,
and he seems to. It's like they're trying to Rughead was not there apparently for the murder, and it's like the one thing we mustn't do is, we mustn't let Rughead know how bad we really are, or he'll bounce. And it turns out the Rughead's known all along, or put it together. Rughead's no dummy.
Yeah, he's kind of like some genius mechanic or something,
But it tries to stitch together this narrative that Packard is simultaneously the rich 80s cool guy douchebag and a psychotic murderer. Right. And they give him dialogue along the lines of like, if I can't have you, nobody will. And he sort of has a switchblade, again, a kind of weird throwback to the 50s.
Yeah.
That it doesn't look like he's ever held before. Like he's sort of fondling it the way you might try and balance a knife in your hand. It's just, and he sort of caresses her cheek with it. There's no real menace to this performance whatsoever, except for everybody else acting like, oh, I can't defy Packard or else, I don't know, he'll kill me or something.
Right.
It's extremely bizarre.
Oh, sure. And it doesn't ever appear that she is his girlfriend, that they really have a relationship. He just goes around and if he sees her with another guy, he gets mad. Now, the actor that plays Packard is Nick Cassavetes. Do you know anything about him?
Nick Cassavetes. I don't.
He is a director. He directed The Notebook. He directed The Notebook, John Q, another movie called My Sister's Keeper.
That's where I know the name.
Yeah. And it looks like he's directing they're doing a remake of The Roadhouse, and it looks like he's going to be the director of that.
Unbelievable. We got to see that one.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, he's, the guy has gone on to...
Related to John Cassavetes?
I'm assuming. I don't know for sure, but yeah, I would think.
Oh, yeah, it is. Son of actress Gina Rowlands and film director John Cassavetes.
Yeah. So and that's another thing that's funny about this is, Sherilyn Fenn, she was young. She looked like she could be a high school kid, or, Charlie Sheen, looks young in this, but Nick Cassavetes looks like he's 30, So again, it's like that just kind of lends to this bizarre, which they've kind of always done that with movies, have 30-year-olds, playing high school kids, but I mean, he just seems so much older than her.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
And then we have Randy Quaid as the sheriff, who is
Quaid, and
he had to, his dialogue is so. I took a couple of quotes. I just want to read a couple of these because there's one line where he says, now this isn't his line that's great, but he says, I don't need a warrant when I have this badge. And Gutter Boy says, but we know our constipational rights.
Yeah.
That was a great line.
That's a classic.
He says, okay, pal, time to drain the drug overdose sloshing around above your eyebrows and tell me who the dude was driving that other car. And then later he says, well, you listen good, skank. I know it's going to be hard with your melon on chemical overload, but there's a killer out there, and I'm going to track the hairball down. So when you two crater heads get finished mining for nose gold and you get a relapse of memory, you let me know, huh? I'm just a phone call away.
I mean, just a phone call away.
Yeah, I mean, he's chewing up scenery in this movie big time. You know, I think maybe some of the other people are trying to be serious, but he knows he's in a ridiculous movie and he's having fun with it.
And I will say something about him as an actor is, you know, you can't take your eyes off him. Camera loves him, and he's just everything he does. There is one scene where he witnesses, I think he sees the space car fly away, and it sort of turns into light or something. And there's this reaction shot of him watching that happen where he looks genuinely stunned. And it's a laughable moment in the film, but it really lands like, and he's a funny looking guy. He's got that huge gap in his teeth, and he's got kind of buck teeth, but he is the quintessential film star in the sense that you just can't take your eyes off of him.
Yeah, it's a shame that he, you know, apparently kind of lost his mind a few years ago, because obviously, I mean, you know, he had some great roles in the 80s and 90s, you know, with well, you know, this is underappreciated, I think, this movie, but you know, the vacation films, you know, and all that.
Sure. Sure. I mean, but his dialogue is another example of how this feels like a huge smush up, because it's more like the kind of overwritten run-on dialogue from the black and white 40s.
For sure.
You know, detective films like, you're going to take a long walk, see, off a short pier. And it just keeps going on and on and on, you know, and his dialogue is overwritten in a similar way. It felt like they tried to update a little bit for like 80s lingo.
Right.
But nobody else in the film speaks like that.
No. Yeah, it's almost like he's in a different movie or something.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, he's kind of a throwback character. And, you know, kind of getting back to the 80s, the difference between 80s movies and now, I have a theory, and this isn't an original theory at all, but I always just wonder, you know, movies at this time, everything was so weird then. You know, movies were weird, fashion was weird, music was weird. You know, we were kids, we were in the middle of it. So, you know, you don't necessarily notice all this until you look back later. But cocaine had to be such a huge influence on this movie, I would think. You know, I mean, I don't know anything about cocaine. I don't know what a lot of cocaine is, but whatever a lot is, there had to be a lot on the set for this film. You know,
they did get great music. I was constantly like, did, you know, licensing change, or was this because today, if you're going to have all of these, like, some of it felt written for the movie, but some of it was actually top 40 tunes, and I'm like, did you not used to have to pay an arm and a leg to license
I wondered about that too.
Own it or something?
I wondered about that too, because like you said, there's like an Ozzy Osbourne song in this, and you know, that's I don't know if that's you know, if it was just easier to license music back then or not.
You know, the movie looks great and the special effects are corny and cheesy, but I actually really liked them. Like, for a nickel and a dime, I thought they were sort of surprising and original. They didn't make any sense, but they looked good when, like, the car would fade in, fade out. The style was extremely nostalgic for me. It took me right back to high school when everybody, you know, was rocking those popped collars, and there was a kind of short skirt that it wasn't as short as skirts had ever been, but there was just something about it. Maybe it was the pairing with a pair of cowboy boots or something that, you know, it took me right back to that time in my life when there was the sort of awe of the opposite sex, awe of girls, and the pretty girls in particular.
Sure.
And the fact that the soundtrack was so of the time and so top shelf, it just made the whole thing, it elevated the whole thing. And so you got to really enjoy it on those levels and still look at the places where not only the dialogue was weird, but the logic of, like, human beings simply don't act this way. Like, when somebody does this, another person in their presence would certainly never do that. Right. And the movie's kind of shot through with places where you felt like, oh no, something totally different needs to happen in the movie. Like, okay, well, we'll just make it. There's a couple places where it just takes a left turn off the page, and it's like you say, but you're just throwing out logic to get from A to B here. It happens a lot.
Oh yeah, definitely. But hey, Chris,
a hugely entertaining movie. Yeah.
I don't know if you're picking this up or not, but my dog is like, she's walking around and sniffing and stuff. I don't know if that's coming through on the...
I'm not hearing it, although maybe we're recording it. That's cool. What's your dog's name?
Olivia.
Olivia.
Which I can take her in the other room and just put a gate up if you think it's going to be a problem.
No, I don't think it's a problem at all. Okay. In fact, I'm just keeping an eye on the time. We're kind of coming down to it. Do you want to shift over to kind of summarizing your thoughts? I mean, I would say for me, highly recommended.
Oh yeah,
you got to check out this movie. There's just so much to delight in here.
And like we said before, so you weren't aware of this movie at all, right? When I told you about it,
I had never heard of it.
Okay, I was aware of this movie, but only in the last couple of years. I think it's kind of gained a cult following fairly recently. I don't know how we missed this when we were kids, because I think this would have been something that we would have been obsessed with.
Oh, yeah.
But my brother-in-law is, he's about 6 years younger than us. And I actually watched it with him a couple of weeks ago. And this was one that he and his brothers watched when they were kids, because he said it was on HBO all the time. Oh. And so, yeah, this is one of these movies that it's definitely underappreciated. As I said, I think it's over the last few years has started to gain kind of a following. It's not available on Blu-ray as far as I know. I think so. We watched this on Tubi. That's where you watched it, right?
That's correct. Yeah, and there's ads they push in, but it's not.
Yeah, but it's a good print. It looks really good. I thought, but I guess this was last. I guess this came out on DVD in like 2010 or something like that. So this is prime for like Shout Factory or somebody like that to make a really high quality Blu-ray of this. But yeah, this is as I said before, this is kind of the definition of so bad it's good. This is a movie where, it doesn't seem like they were intending to make. I think they knew it was funny in some ways because of the dialogue and everything. But I think in a lot of ways they thought, oh, this is cool. We're going to have this cool car and everybody's going to wear these cool outfits and things like that. And so this is kind of the perfect movie to just, watch with some friends, with some beers, and yeah, this is highly recommended for me.
I agree. I think that, maybe if this pandemic thing blows over and we're able to get together on the holidays when we're in the same place, this would be a perfect screening for you and I to do.
Sure.
Pick a couple of craft beers to try out and just sit down and enjoy this all over again on a big screen.
Yeah. Man, and when I watched this with brother-in-law, it's, I don't know what, it's like 80 or 90 minutes or something like that. It's the perfect length. And I think it took us over 3 hours to watch it because we would stop every 5 or 10 minutes and just to laugh or to comment on things, how ridiculous it was. Like, why are they doing this? What is, what's the purpose of this? So yeah, this is a perfect kind of movie to, just get together with some guys and some beers,
I agree. Well, I think we're at our time to wrap it up and keep these things short and sweet. So let's reconvene again soon and we'll watch another priceless gem of some kind. Do you have ideas for what? I don't know. We can talk about it offline. I'm not sure that I've got one locked and loaded, although I've been watching the RoboCop movies again.
Oh yeah. Those are great to I've got a couple of ideas that we'll have to go over.
Terrific. All right. Well, we're going to leave you in anticipation, dear listeners, and we're going to sign up for now. Highly recommended. Go check out The Wraith from 1986.